How's everyone doing? You're back with Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to look at the area of rectangles and squares, and we're going to use this as an introduction to area as a whole topic. So the area of an object really means how much space does this 2D shape take up on my piece of paper. So we've looked at other types of measurements, specifically with perimeter, and that's about how much distance is it around the outside. And this is in one dimension. But now we're talking about area. We want to know how much space does that whole space take up, not just the outside of it. So what's really important for getting these area questions correct is knowing that the square is the fundamental unit of our area topic. And we're going to have a look at two squares now just to see how they're all related. So one way we could work out how much area a 2D shape takes up is to count how many boxes it takes up on the page. So if we have a look at this square here, we could say that this square is only one square. And we're going to use this box to determine how big an area is, just by counting them up. So this one here, we're going to say that is one box. And that makes quite a lot of sense. So if I move down into this one, I've got this side being 2 boxes worth, so it goes up 2 boxes, and each side length, again, is exactly the same. That's how we know that it's a square. But this time, instead of having one box, like we had in the last question, we could see 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 boxes instead. So the way to think about the area of a square is that I've got these 2 boxes that go up, and I've got those 2 times. So I've got them once, and then next to each other as well. So instead of having just 2, I've got 2 times by 2, or 2 times by itself. So the area of this square is those 2 boxes multiplied by the 2 boxes. So I end up with 4 boxes. And that is a really simplified look at how these actually work. But what we want to know is we want to take this understanding and put it with our units of measurement that we actually know. So millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. So for this one, we're going to re-look at it, but instead of saying that the side length is 2 boxes worth, we're going to say that this is 2 centimeters. And that means that every side is 2 centimeters as well. And the same theory here happens. I've got 2 of these boxes that happen twice because of the side length. So to work out what the actual area of this is I have 2 centimeters multiplied by 2 centimeters. Obviously that is 4, so I've got 4 as my final answer, but the units here are incredibly important. Because I've got the same unit multiplied by itself, I can write that that is centimeters squared. When we are doing questions like this, if you don't have the correct units at the end, you're going to get the question wrong. So please make sure you put in this last bit of information every single time. So this actually always happens. Every single unit that we're going to have, if it's millimeters, centimeters, meters, or kilometers, is going to be squared. So we can't just have centimeters by itself when we talk about area. And this is because the units are multiplied by themselves when we do those 2 side lengths multiplication. So centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared, and meters times meters is meters squared. So we have to make sure we have those units in correctly using those index laws. So if we want to know what the actual formula for a square is, all we have to do is multiply the 2 side lengths together. And these have to be the same number because that's what a square is. So it's just the side length squared, or side length times side length. You're going to see this written as s squared, and that's just to save us a little bit of time not writing out the whole word. The actual term, when you square a number, like we did in indices, if you had 4 squared, we would say that's 4 times 4, or 4 times itself. That word square actually comes from how you find the area of one of these squares. So this is just linking our indices knowledge from before, using these powers of 2, to the topic that we're doing right now. So incredibly quickly, if you do have a question like this, where it's 3 centimeters on one side, they're all 3 centimeters. If you are asked to find the area of this square, all you have to do is do the 3 centimeters multiplied by 3 centimeters, which is equal to 9 centimeters squared. And that's all the working out you have to do. Again, make sure you put those units in. But it does get a little bit harder when we're talking about rectangles. Squares obviously have the same side length each time, but a rectangle can have way different side lengths, which could impact the area of the overall shape. So again, we're just trying to work out how many of these 1 centimeter square boxes do we have in this rectangle, and that is the area. So for this question here, I've got a side length that goes up 2 boxes and then goes across the bottom 4 boxes. So one way we could think about this is that I've got 4 boxes down the bottom, definitely. And then they repeat themselves on the top. So I've got it again. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I could count these up pretty quickly and be like, oh, you've got 8 boxes, great job, 4 marks. But we don't want to have to count every time. So all we have to do with a rectangle is work out how far along the bottom it goes and then how many times that repeats itself on the way up. You can actually even see it in this blue writing I've got down here. I've got 4 boxes down the bottom and then it repeats itself 2 times in total. So that means I've actually got all the information I need to work this one out. I've got 4 and 2 times there. So all I have to do is 4 times 2 is equal to 8 total boxes. Again, we do want to use centimeters squared when we can, and this next one's going to go into that. So for here, each box is 1 centimeter squared, and I've got 1, 2, 3 that go up this left-hand side. They are then repeated a total of 5 times. So I've got the 3 there, and then that repeats 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got that first thing, that first row of 3, repeated 5 times. Again, I've got 3 times and 5. So that means when I actually do the working out for this, I've got 3 centimeters, right, up that 3, and that repeats itself 5 times. So I've got multiplied by 5 centimeters. So my final answer is 15 centimeters squared. If we wanted to, we could count up all those boxes and we would get to 15 as well, but this math step will make it much easier. So that means the formula for finding the area of a rectangle is just the length multiplied by the base. So really, how far up and down does it go, multiplied by how far across the bottom it goes. You'll see this written as LB, or length times base, just using those algebraic principles that we have learnt before. I hope you guys found this lesson helpful, and I'll see you again soon.